Thank you. So one of the objectives this year was to resurrect our jazz band, and I'm incredibly happy to see this group of young people here and our students making this dream come true, led by the wonderful teacher, Chris Tuluti. They basically they played three pieces, and we're going to go over the pieces. One of them was Manteca, the other one was Fly Me to the Moon, and of course the last one, Growing Heart. So let's give it up for Mr. Tuluti and our New Rochelle High School Jazz Band. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. You guys are fantastic.
Yes, I know. We're studying now. Yes.
Good luck.
Colleagues, can I get a motion and a second to reconvene the public session of the meeting?
So move.
Barbosa. Second, Brooks.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion and a second to open the public hearing on the 2022-2023 school district proposed budget?
So moved, Williams.
Second, Castellano Minaya.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, I am going to call the public hearing to order. Madam Clerk, do we need to do roll call for the public hearing? Because it says attendance.
Yes, please.
Okay, can you please take the call?
Miss Mujia Oaks,
Present?
Miss Barrios Brooks,
Here.
Miss Bavosa,
Present.
Miss Castellano Minaya,
Here.
Mr. Cooper, Mr. Iannuzzi, Miss Moselli,
Here, but it should be noted that Adam will be joining us shortly.
Miss Ross, Miss Williams.
Present.
A quorum is present.
Thank you very much. We welcome you to this year's public budget hearing. We look forward to hearing from members of the public and your impressions of the budget and comments on the budget that we are bringing to voters on May 17th is the day of the budget vote. If you have not signed up yet, you can sign up with our clerk right over there, Ms. Bonilla. And we are going to start with a few, just before we get to the, public comments, we were just going to do a little bit of an overview of the budget for everybody.
Thank you, President Mujia Oates and Board of Education members and to the New Rochelle community. We have Bill Pastore is here with us this evening, and we have a very short overview which we can provide. You're welcome if we want to go out into, and we can lower the screen so we can do the presentation if that's acceptable.
That is completely acceptable, though I have a question for my colleagues. When people are coming to speak, would you like to stay in the audience to listen to people, or would you like to return to your seats? Okay, so we'll come back to the dais after the short presentation. Thank you.
Okay, ready? Okay. Good evening, Board of Education members, Superintendent Raymond, community members and staff members. My name is Bill Pastore. I'm going to give a brief overview of the budget for the budget hearing. Okay. The budget that we designed supports academic and social emotional learning. It's driven by our 2020 strategic roadmap and the 100-day plan. It focuses on unfinished learning and wellness, emphasizes our school district's values of excellence and equality, employs judicious use of federal, state, and local resources. So the operating budget for 22-23 is $298,760,957. It's a spending increase of 2.79% over the 21-22 operating budget. The major sources of revenues are state aid at $64 million, the tax levy at $220,623,000, appropriated fund balance of $1.65 million, and other revenues of $12,034,000. The tax levy increase for the 2022-23 school year is a 0.98%. Okay. Part of the budget hearing is that we have to present the budget in 3 parts: an administrative component, a program component, and a capital component. So the administrative component covers all the administrative costs, insurance, the central office costs. The program component is all of the instructional costs and transportation. And then the capital component is all of the operations and maintenance on the buildings, transfer to capital, and debt service. So for this year, the administrative component is $31,931,660. The program component is $226,528,000. And the capital component is $40,300,000 for a total of $298,760. We have three columns here. One is last year's budget, the proposed budget, and the contingent budget, which we'll talk about next. So the contingency budget is a budget if the budget fails once and we put up the budget again, it fails a second time, we have to go to a contingency budget. And the contingency budget means that we have to cut certain things out of the budget. We have to cut out some equipment. We can't enter into some contracts. There's a limit on the administrative expenditures. So if that were the case, the contingency budget would be a 1.69%, and the tax levy would be 0 because we would have to go back to using this year's 21-22's tax levy. Okay, just want to remind you that May 17th is the budget vote and Board of Education vote. Okay, and that's it. That's my presentation. Thank you for allowing me to do it here today.
Thank
And,
you.
okay.
Thank you, Mr. Pastore.
my pleasure.
Colleagues, why don't we go back to the dais and we'll start listening to members of the public. Good evening, everybody. We are going to move on to the public hearing portion where we hear from members of the public. Again, the clerk has forms. If you'd like to speak and you aren't already signed up, please do so. And just a reminder, this is specifically about the budget, the 22-23 budget. We will also have public comments as part of the regular meeting after we close out the public hearing. Okay, our first speaker is Mr. Joe Andrews. Is Mr. Andrews here? Okay, we'll go back and see if he's here in a little bit. Our next speaker is Mr. David Peters.
Good evening, Mr. Superintendent and board members. Appreciate.
Can we make sure his mic is
Can
on?
you hear me?
No,
It might have been the mask. I don't know.
that's better. Thank
Is
you.
that better? All right. I won't be long. Thank you. Yeah, pretty much. Not too bad. Thank you. This is really too much for me. It's too much. Don't worry. I don't need all of this. I appreciate all of you. I'm okay. My name is David Peters. I live here in the city of New Rochelle, 112 Chauncey Avenue. Pretty much a lifetime member of the city of New Rochelle. I'm here tonight to pretty much affirm the budget that the school board has passed this year or looking to pass this year. I'm really excited about the fact that you're looking to put more dollars into our children. And I'm really excited about the fact that you recognize that over the course of this last year, it's really important that we look ahead. This isn't really a time for us to look backwards. This is a time to look forward. And in looking forward, putting resources for our children and putting our children first is really important. I'm also appreciative of the fact and hope that as a city that we also pass the bond. I think it's really important that in relationship to that, that structurally we have a place here in the city of New Rochelle where things are intact, where our library can be rebuilt the way that things have occurred. But most of all, what I'm excited about is that this particular budget is one that provides an opportunity for us. I believe that in this moment in time, New Rochelle is in the midst of being in an opportunistic time, and we should take advantage of it and not fall backwards, but again, move forward. So what I just finally want to say to you is that I'm appreciative of all the hard work that you put into this. And my hope is that as a city here, the city of New Rochelle, that we pass this particular budget this year without any problems at all moving forward. So thank you for your time and your efforts. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mr. Andrew Newman.
Adjust this a little lower. Good evening. My name is Andrew Newman. Back in 2015, Western Suffolk BOCES, the district's demographer, provided a study to the BOE that placed K-12 enrollment at 10,817 students. This was the high water mark for the district. Currently, based on CSDNR budget presentation, the district has 9,627 K-12 enrolled students. This is a loss of 1,190 students, or 11% of enrollment over 7 years. This decline is not new. It's something the BOE and administrators have been aware of for years. They have chosen to ignore it or rationalize its existence. Western Suffolk BOCES forecast enrollment will reach 8,800 students by 2031. At current trend, that figure is likely to be achieved far earlier. Local demographics do play a part, but it is also related to perception of quality within the district. The enrollment trend began with the hiring of Dr. Brian Osborne in 2014, who introduced unproven and experimental education policies that drove parents to remove their children from our schools. A string of superintendents endorsed by the BOE doubled and tripled down on these failed policies, which have exacerbated student exodus. The CSDNR at best has become a K-5 district with an irreversible course that will be in place for at least a generation. The creation of 15.2 new positions based on temporary funding programs is a classic example of financial mismanagement. The only option, considering rapidly declining enrollment, which will continue, is for the district to prepare for a dramatically smaller footprint. The budget in its current form doesn't do that. And the only rational choice for the voters of this community is to vote no. I just would like to make one other note. Previously, I asked the superintendent for data on employee headcount at your last town hall. At that event, you stated that you would provide me with that information. I haven't received any data. I sent an email to you last week with no response. And I'm just wondering, are you planning on giving me that data? That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Mr. Vincent Malafitano.
Hi, good evening, Vince Malfitano. Well, Mr. Newman touches on some important things that need to be looked at. There certainly are some issues here with the district in terms of 1,000 student decline in enrollment, a 10% drop or more in our population. And I would have to echo his concern about adding more personnel. And if you remember, and this was my initial thought on coming tonight, I think it was the March 2nd meeting at Jefferson I attended where there was a preliminary thought of a budget with 38 new staff members and a maximum tax cap levy of 2.34%. But then some people like myself and a few others, and I think a few board members raised concerns about, hey, you know, we're living through rapid inflation. And so then a couple of weeks later, we came out with an entire new budget with 15 people and a 0.98% increase. What I'm wondering here is, what happened? This concerns me, that in a span of a couple of weeks, the entire dynamic changed. What's this about? It was a wish list to start with? Is that what it was? Oh, we can't do that. Let's make it 15 people. That scares me a bit. That there was not, did not, in my humble opinion, appear to be any deep thought into the initial presentation. So that worries me a bit. I don't know if there's an explanation for that, but I think a couple of board members correctly pointed out, hey, you know, we got $umpteen from the state this year. We got Governor Hochul running for, we got maximum amount of money from the state this year. It may have something to do with election season. Are we going to get that next year? The massive COVID money and these new positions. I know there's discussion and was talked about, well, we'll find ways to fund them in the future. I don't know if that's the case. A 0.98, I think, is palatable to a lot of folks. But some of the deeper questions, other than, well, let's do stuff for students, which is, you know, nice. But let's get into the weeds here. You know, I mean, it's coming out of my pocket. And we need to do some deep thinking as to how this actually plays out. So I'm on the fence about this, mostly because I don't really quite understand how you can request 38 people and a max tax cap, and then 2 weeks later, boom, a 60% reduction in the number of staff you need, and basically a 2/3 drop in tax levy increase. What happened? I don't, you know, that worries me as a I'm not a financial planner, but what kind of thought processes went into that initial presentation other than, and I hate to suggest it, well, it's okay. They'll vote for it anyway. Nobody votes. Our friends vote. Let's go for the moon on this. I hope that wasn't your thinking. Because I didn't hear, you know, other than a few people, to their credit, raise some concern. So when the public out here, and I'm a member of the public, and I've been paying some reasonable attention below these 40 years, see this, maybe they'll wonder, should I really vote for this thing? I don't know. As I say, I think it's palatable. But 1,000 student drop, a 10% drop in enrollment, and projected to go lower. And with the massive inflation hitting everybody like a hammer right now, price of diesel fuel down the street, $6.59 a gallon. That's home heating oil. Gasoline, $4.29. Con Ed, my Con Ed bill is going to be $400 a month higher in the winter to buy their own books, a 60% increase. So, you know, maybe we should look at this a little bit more. I appreciate the fact that you did revise this, but I do express my concern as to what happened with that initial proposal. And don't we really need those people? Or was that just a wish list? All right, well, look, we'll see. Maybe we'll get more than 7% of the people actually turn out for this thing. I see there's a handful of folks here tonight. So we have to rely on you. But that makes me get concerned when I see such a massive change in a proposal. What was everybody thinking?
Thank you very much. Is Mr. Joe Andrews here? Did he arrive? No. Would anybody else in the audience like to speak? If you would, please, you know what? You could just come straight to the microphone.
President,
Yes.
people to sign up. Can we just get a refresher on what the process will be in terms of responding to questions?
I was not expecting that we respond in real time.
But I mean, when can the community expect the response in terms of like an FAQ on the website? If we could just.
Okay. Actually, Mr. Raymond, how would you like to respond to some of the questions? Would you like it to go as an FAQ onto the website, or you know, as a well, it has to be obviously in a more timely manner than. When do you think we can get answers?
We'll put them on the website by this week.
Okay, great, perfect, great. I think I saw somebody coming up to the microphone. Okay, Mr. Cox, would you like to speak?
Yeah, there was a little confusion. I actually had requested to speak, so thank you for letting me speak. So I'm Robert Cox. I live at 10 LeCount Place in New Rochelle. Few things. Gonna maybe educate some people here on something about our school district. So I actually had mentioned this to the superintendent towards the beginning of the year, which is that we have had an increase in the number of families here in New Rochelle from Guatemala. And there seems to be maybe a misperception that everybody from Guatemala speaks Spanish. And from what I understand is happening, the kids who come from Guatemala are being put into ESL programs that are with Spanish-speaking kids. But Guatemala has a large number of people who speak an indigenous language called Mam. And these kids, you know, don't speak Spanish. They don't speak English. They speak Mam. And there is a growing number of them. I would say over the past 5 years, the Guatemalan population has grown, and therefore I'm going to guess that the Guatemalan Mam-speaking population has grown with it. So knowing the history of New Rochelle, usually if there's a number of people coming from a particular region in Central or South America or Mexico, they follow on. So I'm encouraging the board to consider getting ahead of the curve on this. We should consider doing something immediately like the court system does, like phone-based translation. So if mom-speaking families show up, they have a really ability to communicate. The evaluation material we have is in Spanish, obviously not Mom. There's nobody in the district who speaks mom, to my understanding. BOCES, I think, has one evaluator for mom, and they're spread very thin throughout the BOCES region. So we'd have to look at getting our own person, and they're not easy to get. So before this population grows more, we ought to look at budgeting for staff that specifically can handle the mom population. I think the first step really actually is some kind of head count to evaluate what it was and what it's become, and see what that trend looks like. But then also, like I said, to put up some kind of way instantly, like the courts does, to give like phone-based translation. And then you can worry about trying to hire somebody, which is going to be a little bit tricky. So I'm a little confused because the clock is not running. So you're giving me unlimited time?
Everybody is supposed to get 3 minutes.
Well, I don't know how much
Right.
time I have left. So
Let's say you have another minute.
all right, I'll give it a try. I would say in terms of the budget as proposed, I would concur with Mr. Newman. We have sort of two problems, right? Like a fiscal cliff problem, which you're sort of classically embracing, where you're using one-shot money to take on expenses that will be recurring. And therefore, when that money runs out, you'll have that cliff. So that's probably not a good idea. And then the second is the increase in the spending and then the decrease in the student population. Mr. Newman has actually put together charts on this too, which I've seen. But the per student spending in this district has grown dramatically. And I don't mean to offend anybody there, but we're basically approaching Scarsdale prices per student. But I don't think that we're getting Scarsdale education. I just saw the U.S. News and World Report, their schools ranked in the, top 1,000. I think our school barely made it to the top 10,000. You can't keep raising these prices and just expect people to eat it. And already we have a whole population that's moved out of the state. They moved out of the area. Yeah, people are moving in, but it's just not sustainable to keep spending this kind of money when you're looking at a net drop of about 2,000 kids, and yet the budget just keeps going up. At some point, some board is going to have to say, we're going to do something about it. I will mention, because nobody was here at the time, in 2015, when Jeff White hired Western Suffolk BOCES, it was to look at what this issue was saying. And what we found out was it wasn't a pretty picture. And I would just say, for some people I've spoken to, including some people on the board, it's not like this is going to happen. Like, we got projections that someday, right? The projections came from 2015. They go out to past 2030. That's 15 years. So we're actually right in the middle of that. And if you look at the projections, what you're going to find out is that they've been actually very accurate. And so there's no reason to think they won't be accurate going forward. I don't want to get into the attribution of why that's happening, but it's just a fact. And so to keep spending more money and keep adding more staff is like magical thinking. Okay. At some point, this car is going to crash. And I don't think that it's being taken seriously by this board. It hasn't been taken seriously by past boards. I worry it's not going to be taken seriously by future boards, but something to think about. All right.
Thank you,
So,
Mr. Cox.
I definitely came in at whatever my limit is there, because it still says 3 minutes.
Sounds good. Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Anybody else like to speak? If you would, you can raise your hand, come up to the microphone. It's hard for me to see. It's kind of bright out there.
There doesn't seem to be anybody else.
Okay, great. Colleagues, so we are going to close the public hearing for the 2022-2023 budget. As Mr. Raymond indicated, they will post answers to the questions posed tonight on the website. Okay, colleagues, can I get a motion and a second to close the public hearing and resume our regular meeting?
So move Williams.
Second, Bavosa.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we are going to go to our other agenda for the Board of Education regular meeting. Okay. Can I get a motion and a second to accept minutes of the Board of Education regular meeting held on April 5th, 2022, as submitted by the clerk and secretary to the Board of Education? And may I get a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the Board of Education special meeting held on April 19th, 2022, as submitted by the clerk and secretary to the Board of Education?
So move.
move Bavosa.
Second, Brooks.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. I would like to invite my colleagues, if they have any announcements they would like to make. Mr. Cooper?
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to take a moment and recognize some of the amazing talent that I have seen of our students over the last several weeks. As the year approaches towards the end, a lot more recitals and other things are happening. I had the distinct pleasure of attending Peter Pan at Webster with several of my colleagues, some of whom had students and people participating. It was a fantastic production. Congratulations to Ms. Passarelli and the whole school, and also to Mr. Marwa and to the PAVE program. I saw recently the PAVE 2, 3, and 4 recitals, as well as ironically just the PAVE 1 moments ago. So I just wanted to recognize the amazing talent of our students and how fantastically lucky we are to have such dedicated staff and teachers who are helping them do some of this fantastic arts work.
Thank you. Before we move on to the rest of the board announcements, we would like to move the student representatives update from discussion items to the Board of Education announcements. We'll have them go after we're all done. So can I get a motion and a second to move student representatives update New Rochelle High School to item number 3 to go after announcements by Board of Education members?
So move Bavosa.
Second, Brooks.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Ms. Brooks?
I just wanted to second Mr. Cooper's acknowledgement of the amazing talent in the Peter Pan at Webster this weekend, but particularly thank Ms. Passarelli, Mr. Middleton, and especially all the teachers and staff that supported that effort. It is Teacher Appreciation Week, and I know that they went above and beyond and being after school with those kids till 5:30 or 6 for 2 weeks in preparation for that play, and their efforts are absolutely appreciated. I also would like to mention that Columbus School will be hosting an event this weekend, Mother's Day, Cinco de Mayo celebration from 2:30 to 5:30 outside the Columbus School on the right outside. And there'll be food, entertainment, arts and crafts, and cultural celebrations. And as a board buddy, I'm excited to be there on Saturday.
Ms. Bavosa?
I'll try to keep this short, but I have some wonderful things to announce, so I'll go through them in a bulleted form. STEM at Jefferson and Trinity continued. I was able to witness classes and teachers moving forward with brilliant ideas and wonderful execution of classes. The play Check Please at New Rochelle High School was incredible. And when you have a busy evening and you can go to something that's completed within 45 minutes, double kudos to Mr. Sturpey and the high school and Deepak for everything that they've done. There's an upcoming plant and boutique sale at Ward and Barnard this week. I'd urge you to look for the dates. Davis had something today, and the Columbus Day event is also coming up. Happy Mother's Day to all who are those who take care of children, whether an actual mother, stepmother, grandmother, aunt, uncle, cousin, someone who takes that motherly role. Have a wonderful day. 4 New Rochelle High School students were inducted as New York State My Brother's Keeper Fellows. Incredible accomplishment. For the 3rd time, Isaac Young students had top honors in the New York State stock market game. Again, an incredible and impressive showing. New Rochelle High School had a car wash. Tonight, we have lacrosse, baseball, softball teams, and I'm sure many more things going on, as well as the musical that's taking place in the Linda Kelly Theater. I would also encourage people to vote for the budget and the candidates. We have 3 candidates, and we do have a budget that we have worked hard on. That will take place on May 17th. Let's see if we can get double digits on the people who vote. As well as that, Poetry Out Loud. Kudos to the Fund for Educational Excellence, who are reinitiating this wonderful event on May 16th, right here at the high school. And Webster Peter Pan. I hope I never grow up. It was incredible to see hundreds of children taking part in a rotational presentation so that children who might not otherwise have an opportunity were able to do so. For Teacher Appreciation Week, to the teachers and the teaching assistants and all of the people who support the educational prowess that we try to put forth each and every day. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And on a very personal note, to our ambulance and hospital staff who have taken many of our children under their care recently, and today, especially one of the family members in my family. Thank you to all of you who are people who step up for children each and every day.
Thank you so much, Ms. Bavosa. Ms. Williams?
Thank you, Madam President, and good evening, New Rochelle. And I wish all teachers and educators a great Teacher Appreciation Week, and also Happy Mother's Day to everyone who, people who are mothers or are like mothers to people. And also, I would like to direct your attention to our website, the 2022 Annual Board of Education Election and Budget Vote website. And the webpage contains a timetable of events and deadlines and how the election process takes place. And also, it includes the email addresses and names of the 3 candidates. Good luck to all.
Thank you so much. Ms. Castellano-Manaya.
I just wanted to congratulate also all of our school principals. Unfortunately, Principal Appreciation Day fell on a weekend, and I just want to make sure I acknowledge all of the hard work and strength and humility and collaboration and passion that our principals, the best principals in the world, offer to our district and to our school community. Congratulations and thank you so much for everything you do.
Ms. Brooks.
To that end, I also wanted to mention that I was able to attend the ALMS Spring Fling on Saturday. It was really fun. The step team was there. The cheerleaders were there. Coleman School of Dance was there. There was a great food truck with amazing chicken. So I wanted to just recognize the principal there as well as the whole staff for having just a great event. There was balloons and DJ Smithy Boy was there. It was a lot of fun.
Fun. Yes, Mr. Cooper.
My apologies. One additional thing, because Mr. Weber was nice enough to send out a note as to how fantastic the City School District of New Rochelle did at the Tri-County Science Fair. The results were released, and I'd like to take a moment and acknowledge the fantastic work, not just of Mr. Weber and his team, but also of the 3 high school award winners, Dylan Sadow, Ariel Rosenkrantz, and Elena Adams, all of which you placed and did some fantastic work in clinical psychology as well as physiological and experimental psychology. So congratulations to those students and congratulations to Mr. Weber and the fantastic work.
Thank you. That's a good segue to our student. Oh,
Big announcement. I just want to say, you brought up, but one of the things that's also really remarkable is that one of those winners is in the 9th grade. So we really have an exceptional cohort of students with an exceptional teaching staff. And, you know, we may not have the same demographics as Scarsdale has, but we have the, you know, in my opinion, more options and wider reach and we can really meet students where they are, and students can really find their passion here in a way that you can't necessarily in every district.
Thank you so much, Ms. Mazzali. Thank you. Okay, we're going to, oh yes, we would like to invite Principal Artile to introduce our student liaisons from the high school.
Destroy the clicker for one, and the tech will definitely come and help me and put it back together. All right, so tonight we do have our monthly report by our student government representative, but also we have 3 students here that will be sharing some of their experiences. They participated in the recently held, hosted by the Boys and Girls Club, our Civic Day. Each of them had a wonderful experience. They sort of shadowed somebody from the community, and they spent a day. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call them in order. I'm going to call Isabella and Vivian to come up first, and then I get the 3 students, and then we're going to go in that order. Returning as always, Isabella and Vivian, they will be giving us the monthly report for the high school. I also would like to introduce at this time also the 3 students that participated on Civic Day. Brian Penn Jr. Come up, Brian. Vianney Godinez and Francisco Madrid. Come up, guys, come up. We got you. And then they go in that order. All right, don't break it.
Good afternoon. My name is Vivian Serafin. I'm Secretary of Student Government, and I'm a senior at New Rochelle High School. My name is Isabel Fila. I'm Vice President of Student Government, and I'm also a senior at New Rochelle High School. Thank you once again, Superintendent Raymond and the Board of Education for allowing us to be here and share what's going on at the high school. Since our last encounter, New Rochelle High School students have continued to demonstrate unity and excellent leadership capabilities in difficult times. A little over 2 weeks ago, SAD and CODA had a fundraising event in which they made drinks to sell to students while handing out sheets of fun facts to raise awareness about the consequences that come with destructive decisions such as drinking, smoking, etc. The arts programs also had their final performances. Orchestra and band seniors were able to enjoy experiencing their last spring concert in high school, and the rest of the student body were able to enjoy the performance brought along with it. PAVE Acting ended the year off with a bang with their play Check Please. Additionally, over the past few weeks, students have taken initiative to raise awareness towards certain difficulties our community faces. Some of the members of Green Club spoke at the Earth Day Environmental Justice Rally last Saturday, voicing their concerns and educating others about the lead in New Rochelle's waters. They took on the role of representing the school and collaborating with active members of Westchester's Environmental Committee, as well as local residents to fight for the protection of our health. Moreover, the Boys and Girls Club shadowed members of the City Council, learning the inner works of our local government. They also discussed inequalities we face between our city ends, such as the lack of cleaning in Lower New Rochelle compared to the North End, as well as how you, the Board of Education and City Council, can collaborate with the community to lower violence in our youth. The National Honor Society and English Department hosted a Poetry Out Loud night where students who attended were given the opportunity to share their wonderful work and socialize with other like-minded student poets. The event was such a success that the English Department can't wait to host the event again next year. My Sister's Place held a workshop for students in recognition of April's Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Students were able to learn about consent, boundaries, red flags, and how to advocate their needs in relationships. And finally, yesterday, seniors gathered to celebrate the next chapter in their lives for College Decision Day and showing off their new school spirit of the college they have committed to. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brian Penn Jr. I'm a senior here at New Rochelle High School. I'm also the 2022 Youth of the Year for the Boys and Girls Club of New Rochelle. Thank you. Today, my principal, Dr. A, asked me to come and speak and be a representative, give a quick brief of what I did on Monday, April 28th, I believe the 28th, as I shadowed our New Rochelle mayor, wonderful mayor, Noam Bramson. I was the mayor for the day. It was a great honor. It was a privilege. I would really like for this event to go on more and more and more. We had a great time. I went with him to different meetings. It was a busy day, but I went with him to meetings. I shot some commercials, for the Youth Bureau. I met many different people. He gave me a personal tour of City Hall, and we had a good time. I conducted a council a meeting with the council members. I went over some laws, some bills. We went over things that going on construction-wise in New Rochelle, and we had a really good time. So I hope that this event continues to go on, and I thank you for your time. Have a good evening.
Can you guys hear me? Okay. Hi, my name is Vianney Godinez. I am a sophomore at the New Rochelle High School. On April 25th, I participated in the Boys and Girls Club Annual Civics Day. I had the privilege to be selected to shadow the New Rochelle Chamber of Commerce, Catherine White. We had a very busy morning, starting off with the ribbon cutting in the City Council chamber. A while after that, I attended WVOX, where I co-hosted the chamber show. I was lucky enough to interview the general manager of the Audi dealership for their grand opening, which later revisited a few of New Rochelle's murals because they're New Rochelle's attractions, and that's what the chamber does, so people could come live here in New Rochelle. And I will be looking forward for more hands-on activities like Civics Day. It was an enjoyable experience that I'm grateful to be a part of. Thank you. Have a great evening.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Francisco Madrid, but I go by Frankie, and I'm a freshman in North Shore High School. And a few days ago, I participated in the annual Civics Day with the Boys and Girls Club. I replaced the superintendent, Jonathan Raymond, for the day. We began the day by touring the Board of Ed floor, and then I took charge of the day by starting in his office. We looked at our schedule for the day, and we proceeded to make our way to Ward, where Principal Mealy gave me a tour of the school and showed me their outdoor classroom. After there, we departed. We made our way to Davis School, where Mr. Bambrola greeted us. Then we also made our way to Alba Leonard School, where I all got a tour by a security guard. I'm very thankful to have visited these schools, especially as a West End kid that has never had the experience to visit schools, well, not in my neighborhood. Thank you, Mr. Raymond, for the opportunity.
Thank you guys so much. Mr. Raymond? Oh, okay. Yeah.
I think Frankie might be taking his job. Uh-oh.
Yeah, he's been replaced. Definitely. When Mr. Raymond returns, we will have him do his update, and I believe we are going to be celebrating a tenure appointment at that time. I think he's coming.
Thank you, President Mujoz and Board of Education members in the New Rochelle community. That was it was great to hear our students to give their report. Your voices are so important. Your voices are really why we're here. I wanted to underscore, Brian, you didn't mention that you actually passed a policy that you gave to the city and the school district. And I think underscoring it, it's really about us working together to provide more supports and more opportunities for the young people in New Rochelle. And I think that's a really important point. We need to work more closely with our city partners. We need to work more closely with our community. So thank you for reminding us of why we're here and really what we're supposed to be doing. That was a really important message, and that work that you did together. I have a few things I want to share this evening. First, I want to share that our new space, our new home for our Huguenot Academy program from the high school, co-located over at Monroe College at 140 Huguenot. We continue to work to get that space ready for our young people to be able to to be back in school in their new home full time. We worked really closely with the city of New Rochelle. Our certificate of occupation was approved by the city, and I really want to extend my thanks to everyone in the city who helped out with that. Their building and grounds department facilities, as well as the fire and all the inspections. That certificate of occupation was issued on April 29th. All materials have been submitted up to the Department of Education at the state, the Facilities and Planning Division, and we continue to work with them. They have some things that they want us to continue to adjust. So we're continuing to work with them. Our team is working expeditiously. We have a crew in there. They'll be in there well past almost to midnight tonight, continuing to make the adjustments, and we appreciate the support of Monroe College. We appreciate and we understand the faculty and staff and our students in our Huguenot Academy and their families. They have gone through so much this year, and we're working diligently to get that new home, and working with the state to get all these last things finalized so they can be in their new home, and we'll keep you updated on that. Second, I wanted to also share some exciting news about our summer learning programs. Congratulations go out to Maximiliano Vivaldo, a 5th grader at Jefferson Elementary School, for submitting the winning entry to name our summer learning program Summer Stars. Let's give it up for Maximiliano. His entry was chosen from 160 nominations submitted from students at all grade levels across the school district, and he received 46.5% of the vote. I wish I could have said I came up with this idea myself, but I didn't. When asked why he submitted that entry, he said, quote, "Summer Stars will help because in summer we should do fun stuff," end quote. On Monday, our schools will be sending families invitations to sign up for our summer learning. We're also developing a logo with the Summer Stars. And in the very near future, the Board of Education will have an opportunity to honor and congratulate Maximiliano and his family at a future board meeting. And those summer learning will also be available to sign up online. Really appreciate all the effort that has gone into that. Thank you again, Maximiliano. And finally, I want to use my superintendent update to both tell a little story and to recognize one of our superheroes in the school district this evening. When my kids were little, of course, they loved Lego. And there was a little commercial one time about a superhero named Jack Stone. And as the story goes, and I'll try to be short, there was a great disaster in Legoland. There was a flood, and I don't mean to say and bring back memories of floods, but there was a flood in Legoland, and on the screen next comes the police chief, and the police chief said, "We've got to send out the police boat to try to rescue all the families that have been stranded by the flood." And of course, they sent out the police boat, but the police boat wasn't able to navigate through all the debris that was in the water and now in the streets. So the fire chief comes on, and you can see him saying, "Well, we need to call out the helicopter to go in and to zoom in and to rescue everyone." Well, the helicopter got stuck in down power lines and trees. So at the same time, both the fire chief and the police chief get on the line, and they said, we need Jack Stone. And so out of the sky comes Jack Stone, and he comes up with this idea of taking the boat and the helicopter and putting it together to make a heliboat. And the heliboat goes around and it rescues all the people. And at the very end of it, it's like Jack Stone, can do, will do, done. And I share that story because we have so many Jack Stones and Jacqueline Stones working in this school district. To use the term superhero, I know it can be kind of cheesy, but tonight we get to honor one of those superheroes. Tonight, this Board of Education will take up and hopefully pass a resolution to give Michael Hildebrand tenure. And Michael, we're going to embarrass you, so you can stand up for a moment. And I hope you got your good socks on. I got mine on. But it all started for Mr. Hildebrand in New Rochelle High School. I think your footprints are still seen here, Michael. You know, we still have families that talk about you, that remember you, that speak about you fondly. And I know every day when you're at Trinity Elementary School, you know that all roads lead to New Rochelle High School. You know, you started with the end in mind, and that's what makes you, you know, such a tremendous educator. So I want to, in advance of the board taking action, I want to salute you. It is cheesy, sir, but you are a superhero. And as I said today, your heart is bigger and deeper than any skyscraper this city could ever build. Thank you. We salute you and honor you.
And the mural is incredible. Congratulations, Mr. Hildebrand. Very well deserved. We're excited to vote on it tonight. Okay. We are moving on to the presentation by Dr. Artiles. Colleagues, would you like to join me in the audience, and we can ask questions from there and then return here for the rest. Bring your microphones.
All right, thank you.
Colleagues, bring your microphones. We will also, after Dr. Artiles' presentation and your questions, we are going to have a presentation by the new board member orientation committee. So, and we'll be able to ask questions as well and view that from the audience.
Good evening, Board of Education, our Superintendent of School, Mr. Jonathan Raymond, our community, and our central office officials. We are incredibly happy to be here tonight, especially after the motivating presentation by a jazz band. So to start the night with some great music, and then our student leaders coming in and reporting about the high school. Is always difficult to sort of follow those great presentations by the kids. So we try our best. Tonight, we're going to take you through some of the things that we have been doing at the high school, specifically concentrating in our two main areas, two priorities when it comes to unfinished learning and SEL, which are critical as we begin to sort of get the student reintegrated into the daily experiences of education. I guess they're going to have to do some of the clicking for me. So the agenda tonight, again, the jazz band performance. We're going to go through our school profile a little bit, and then we're going to talk about our SEL and unfinished learning as two of our top priorities. And of course, also recognize our community engagement and partners. And then we go to some question and answers. So our school profile, so we start with our school profile, and it's so our mission, and I do read this statement, I do like to read it on a daily basis to sort of, because it's inspirational. I mean, there you see that we are working extremely hard to creating or forming those tolerant citizens who value culture, right? Who possess that intellectual, social, emotional independence, to become not only lifelong learners, but to become change agents, not only of our community, but also our country and the world and society as a whole. So we are doing that. We have that caliber students here at New Rochelle High School. But that caliber of students cannot be created without a wonderful, wonderful team. And this is indeed the best team that I ever worked for and worked with. And I'm very proud of being part of this family. We have our assistant principal, Rachel Cornelius. We have our new assistant principal, Ms. Hira Amini. House 1 principal, Ms. Latoya Price. House 3 principal, Mr. Seth Bushing. And House 4 principal, Mr. Daniel Gonzalez. And then we continue with sort of the heart and soul of what happens in the classroom. And we all know that what happens in the classroom matters the most. And we have our department chairs that are consistently looking for ways how to improve. That's what is beautiful about working with this team. Is always looking for ways how to make things better. Things that are already great, there are ways to make it better. We have our chair for the English language arts, Ms. Lydia Arbola. We have our chairs for social study, Mr. Gustavo Barbosa. We have our chair for mathematics and engineering, Ms. Amara Gonzalez. And we have our chair for science, Rica Liveres. And we continue with the team. We have our assistant director for special education, Ms. Maureen Avion, our director of guidance, Mr. Curley, director of extended day, Ms. Marie Mayer, director of performing and visual arts, Mr. Deepak Morwa, our supervisor of physical education and health, Ms. Tirsa Rodriguez Gonzalez, our director of Huguenot Academy, Andrea Track, and our director of athletics, Mr. Young, Steve Young. So these sort of show to us briefly what our student body looks like, and we're missing one, and what our student body look like. Basically, go back one. No, that's not. All right, great. So so it showed the diversity that we have in New Rochelle High School. This is one of our strengths, how diverse our student body is, and the power behind that push, and the power behind how our students sort of come together in one building, work together, learn together, sort of learn from each other, support each other. It is a wonderful experience on a daily basis to be here. And this is sort of a snapshot of our graduation in comparison. We wanted to give an indication of a few years showing June and August grad rates. So this is basically college accepting week, and our student government representative, they spoke about that, specifically about the great event that we had yesterday here at New Rochelle High School at the promenade, the new seating area. It's basically decision day. This was updated as of April 27. It's ongoing, it's fluid. Data is information that we get from the kids as they make decisions. They are still sort of debating what school am I going to go to? What school am I going to give my talent to? So we see the diverse number of schools and sort of where our students are. They going all over the country, they're going all over the nation, they're going all over the state. So they're going anywhere, and we are very proud of them. We're also very proud of our students that are going to trade school, to become mechanics and become plumbers and become also welders. We want to recognize those students as well, and that are going to go into the healthcare industry as well. So some of the ways that we have begun, and again, I would love to take credit for some of this stuff here, but this has been happening at the high school, and it's wonderful, the strategies that they have been using in sort of the outreach, right? But one of the things when I got here, one of the parents consistently, they spoke about communication, give us more info, keep us in the loop so that way we can sort of guide our kids as well. So, that tremendous amount of work has been done to increase the options of super courses through Syracuse and the early college experience through Westchester Community College as well. Some of those things have been data points taken from our AP potential and from some of the surveys used, such as EOS, and sort of just gathering that information and that data to allow sort of us to identify ways to allow students that otherwise would be reluctant to take an AP level course or a dual enrollment course to just take the plunge. So we be there waiting for them, making sure that they receive the support that they need in order for them to be successful. Another way to sort of share that information is through Zoom meetings, Zoom sessions in class, after school. Teachers sort of speaking about the courses is very powerful when you have a teacher sort of speaking to the students about that next course that is available for them to take, sort of give them a little snapshot. We had a tremendously successful advanced course information night, which was incredibly well attended. Looking forward to do that again next year, where we sort of spend time and created different rooms for the parents to go and be part of a presentation by teachers where they allow the opportunity to ask questions about specific courses. So here we have, for example, and this is some of the data that we have of the the number of AP level courses that I've taken at New Rochelle High School. So you have two numbers that I want you to sort of look at. So we have 1,137 number of courses that were taken back in 2017, 2018 school year. Then we want to sort of compare that moving forward to 21, 22, right? 1,368 courses. And that 1,137 courses was taken by a total of 632 students back in 2017-18. And the 1,368 courses was taken by a total of 726 students. How does that happen, right? You have a student that is taking 5 AP level courses, while you have another student that might be taking 1, or you have a student that is taking 2, right? So is the production. You see that many of our students are taking multiple courses at the same time, challenging themselves, sort of pushing themselves beyond, and sort of consistently finding way to just get as many experiences as they can throughout the whole school day. Something here when it comes to dual enrollment courses, we have, again, it's sort of a snapshot in 17-18, 649 total courses taken, right? And then 793 taken in 2021. Then we go, that's those courses by 373 students taken in 2017 and 611 students taken in 2021. And the trajectory here, as you can see, that students naturally, they've been drifting for a while towards AP level courses, towards doubling up on those AP level courses and sort of going singleton on those dual enrollment college courses. Some of the special programs that we have here at New Rochelle High School are VEX Robotics. I mean, they eventually you're going to see them come and demonstrate. They've been wanting to do that, but our robotics team won sectional this year. We put the team together. We say, you know, we're going to send you off and we're going to wish you luck and you're going to do well. And they won sectional. When they went to compete for state, they were not successful, but next year we're looking forward to be at the top ranks when it comes to our state competitions in VEX Robotics. We are also incredibly proud to say that we are going to become a seal of biliteracy school this year. So New Rochelle High School is going to have candidates that will be receiving the New York State seal of biliteracy. And this seal is incredibly prestigious. It's when students, they show that they have mastery in more than one language, right? So this is with a tremendous amount of pride that we are doing this work, and the numbers that we're going to be able to certify every year are simply going to grow as we continue to develop the program. So we're very proud of that. We, of course, we have our WESF Regeneron through our science research and the team doing extremely well, ranking very high when it comes to the competitions and the Regeneron state competition and the tri-state competition as well. So you see the pipeline already sort of starting towards New Rochelle High School. I'm very happy to hear those numbers and those successes at the Tri-County for our elementary and middle school students, because those are the future Regeneron science research presenters for us at the high school. And of course, PAVE, which is incredible and provide to us a diverse set of programs for our students that maintains our student engaged in the school process. So now I am going to introduce Ms. Sahira Amini to sort of take us through some of the priorities that we have been working on at the high school to address social emotional learning and to implement some of those strategy into the daily student experience at the high school.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. So we know that social and emotional learning is an essential part of our students' education and their development. When we talk about SEL, we're looking at the process of how our students acquire and apply the knowledge, the skills, and the attitudes to develop positive identities. How do they have healthy and supportive relationships? How do they make responsible decisions? How are they managing their emotions? And most importantly, finding appropriate outlets to navigate the challenges we call life. Not only is unfinished learning a phenomenon of academics, but it also exists on a social emotional level. Our students lost almost 2 years of high quality social interactions with their peers and faculty. We wanted to ensure that we introduced SEL strategies in our school and in our classrooms to acknowledge this and provide a healthy transition for our students. So we've used the CASTLE framework as a starting point. We created an SEL and wellness committee this year with an emphasis on how would we implement SEL for our school community. The committee consists of teachers, counselors, administrators, and our focus questions were around what can we do as a school? What do we want to see and what would it look like? We came up with different ideas from open group lunch sessions, dedicated time for activities focused on team building, extracurricular activities, and clubs. But one thing that was really important to the committee members and the larger school community is starting on a smaller scale to identify opportunities for meaningful and purposeful connection. So we took that feedback and we shied away from running specific large-scale school-wide SEL days, and we focused on staff volunteers to participate in team building activities. Our committee worked on creating an activity bank that promotes wellness, physical activity, team building, and getting to know each other. We have also incorporated Counselor's Corner for our counselors and clinicians to engage with our students during their lunch periods. With the support of counselors, we've also had clinicians push into our classrooms to engage students in mindfulness activities, stress management workshops, and identity activities. Our priority is creating a safe and supportive environment where students feel heard, and most importantly, strengthening the student-to-student relationship and the staff-to-student relationships. We know that this work is rooted in building trusting relationships, which ultimately improves the school climate. Our next step as a committee is more training for staff and inviting students to join the committee because their voice is equally important, and we want to make sure that the work we are doing is aligned with their needs. We've also been doing a lot of work with our staff, and it's been happening in faculty meetings and department meetings to make sure that they have the necessary support in implementing SEL strategies, restorative practices inside the classroom. The faculty has been exposed to a lot of material from restorative practitioner and educator Michelle Stowe and researcher and author Brene Brown. Michelle Stowe's work is it's focused around the use of restorative practice strategies in the classroom to build relationships. So she provides teachers with strategies on how to go about creating an environment of de-escalation and relationship building in the classroom. So both methods, proactive methods, and student disengagement and disciplinary issues. Our faculty has begun to use some of Michelle Stowe's strategies in the classroom, specifically on how to have difficult conversations with students, but helping them move in the right direction. As a tool to reduce conflict in a less punitive way and help students process their thoughts and their feelings so that they can better handle situations and be present in the classroom, we've been using restorative circles at the high school. So related to discipline, the purpose of restorative circles is to heal the harm that was created, and to do that in a manner where it allows for students to self-reflect, take responsibility, and identify what has to happen to move forward in a positive direction. Teachers and administrators have been taking this approach to foster a supportive climate by creating norms and shared values that we can all work toward. Our collective goal is to build our students' capacity to take ownership of the decisions that they're making every day and help them make better choices and ultimately build trust with each other. So some of the questions we would ask our students in a restorative circle include, what happened? What were you thinking at the time? What have you thought about since? Who was impacted by the harm that was created? What could you have done differently? And what do you think you need to do next to make this right? So these questions are focused on the 5 core competencies of the CASTLE framework, where students are practicing their self-management skills, they're practicing self-awareness, social awareness by trying to be empathetic and see what someone else may feel, relationship building, and of course, responsible decision-making. But restorative circles are just as important in proactively building community inside the classroom as well. So during our March 28th half day, we had teacher volunteers run a community circle that was focused on problem solving to create a safe and supportive learning environment within the classroom. This idea and activity came from Michelle Stowe's video. So we had teacher volunteers run a problem solving community circle in their classrooms. Teachers were able to identify a collective problem that was happening in the classroom. So for example, we had a teacher run a problem solving circle that focused on the quality of work that was being turned in. So she used that problem and then ran a community problem solving circle with her students, where students had the ability to rate themselves on a scale of 1 to 10 on how they would grade themselves on the work that they're submitting. The teacher would ask questions on, why do you think this is? What can you do differently? And what will you commit to? So this process allowed, again, students to be reflective in the process and then create goals for themselves that they would be held accountable for. So again, this is an ability for students to own and engage in their personal growth, both academically and social emotionally. Power of Peace, very proud of Power of Peace. Just, I think it's great. It's been an integral part of New Rochelle High School for well over a decade, developed by a graduate, Michael Arterberry. It's a build-up of two workshops, experiential workshops designed to enable young people to recognize their ability, their power. It boosts their self-esteem. And it's focused on students becoming skilled at conflict resolution. And it's also focused on building lasting relationships with the school community. Power of Peace offers our students an opportunity to feel understood, connected with each other, and empowered. It also creates an environment where they are building and lifting each other up by getting to know one another, improving their communication skills. So we've had 8 workshops so far. We have 4 more to go. And these workshops are not just students, but staff also participate in these workshops. This year, we hosted 8 sessions with 4 to go. And these group sessions were special and timely because they're the first Power of Peace sessions we've had since our full return following the pandemic. We do want to highlight that we're going to be hosting level 2 workshops at the end of this month. And the significance of level 2 workshops are students will be leading these workshops with their peers. So with more training, they are going to be leading the level 2 workshops with students across the 9th, 10th, and 11th and 12th graders. So again, an example of how Power of Peace strives to empower our students and give them the leadership skills necessary to contribute positively to our school community. So the benefits are plenty. We do hope it continues here at New Rochelle. There's a lot to celebrate when it comes to social emotional learning and the work we're doing to address those gaps. We know this work doesn't happen overnight. There's a lot to do, but we are extremely excited and proud of what we have accomplished so far. And we are excited to see what we can do to build on this and leverage what we've done this year so that we can reach even more students next year. And I do want to just, we want to thank our entire staff. We cannot do this work without our entire staff. It includes everybody that works in this building and our community partners that Dr. Artiles will speak about a little bit later on. They played a huge role this year in providing opportunities for our students to enhance the academic and social emotional growth of our students. And now back to Dr. Artiles.
Thank you so much. I'm going to try this. All right, so when we look at unfinished learning at the high school, so there's 3 areas that we wanted to focus on. That was the area of focus, right? Identify based on the data that we have and based on the different assessment that we use, the interventions, and of course, how do we monitor the progress? So when we go into this area and we first look at our literacy piece at the high school, and of course, as the superintendent spoke before about the flood, when we returned to the high school in November, we right away sort of administer I start reading enterprise to our student. This is on a scale of 1400. right? So you see how the late fall screening for those students, ninth graders, they score, the average was a 1093, and then the median 1100, and then 1116, and 1122, 1123, 1129. So that's sort of the beginning, sort of how we found our kids once they came back to us in person. And so we took that data, right? And what we found was that our students, they did very well in the standards when it came to vocabulary acquisitions and use. They really did very strongly. They performed very strong in those areas, using vocabularies and also the acquisition process when it came to that. But we also found another area where we noticed some concerns with our students, which was in the standards in around craft and structure and integrated of knowledge and integration of knowledge and ideas. So we're going to take you into how we came about developing our areas of focus, our skills that we wanted to target to ensure that we sort of providing the student with the necessary support in order for them to bridge the learning gap when it came to craft and structure and integration of knowledge and ideas based on the data that we gathered from the STAR assessment administered to them. So the priority, the two areas that we wanted to concentrate specifically to address that issue was, of course, for 9th and 10th graders. What we did was that we wanted to integrate into the daily teaching in the classroom how to analyze in detail themes, central ideas, how they emerge and develop. For 11th graders, the goal was to how to get the student the training so they can be better at citing documents or doing the research and citing, understanding the evidence on the text and support that evidence and that analysis. And of course, making that inference that they can draw from the text, including determining where the text leaves those matters uncertain. So that analysis part and comprehension part was critical. So here what we have is a typical lesson plan for English language art classroom that was developed based on the information to address specifically those areas of learning, right? So you can see in there where, go back one. Right, so specifically you can see the objectives, right? Is clearly addressing that area where student will be able to identify the parts of an informational test using case, cause-effect structure, develop a deeper understanding of the author's claims, the warm-up activities, sort of all connected. Everything is interconnected. The standard on top is specifically indicated, sort of addressing that area. So here's some of the data then moving forward, right? So again, late fall to the left, right? That's the one that we sort of spoke about before, the 1093. That's the average, the 1116, 1123. Then we move forward to early winter. Now the scores are 1099, 1119, 1133. So progress was made across the board with the median as well from 1100 to 1104, 1122 to 1124, 1129 to 1138. So in the bottom right, you see more specific data when it comes to our passing rate. This is an average of the students' data when it comes to Q1 and Q2. Clearly, there's marking period 1 and 2. I'm used to saying Q1 and 2, but in there, clearly for the 9th grade, you see that in marking period 1, 80% of our students successfully completed ELA 1, while 82% completed the class successfully for Q2. And then for 10th grade, it was 7684, for 11th grade, 7177. So in mathematics, again, just thinking closely as we need to think, which is credit accumulation, graduation. How are the students on track to graduate? These are critical courses for our students, especially in the 9th grade, that Algebra 1, that ELA 1, that Global 1, right? All those courses are critical to ensure that our students stay on that path to on-time graduation. That's the key, on-time graduation. So in mathematics, what we have done is instituting more use of common assessment to really identify those areas, identify those gaps. Where are our students in general suffering? Some of that data was taken and used by the teachers to develop a different strategy. One of the strategy that was put in place is small group instruction, reprioritize the standards and specifically address those areas, and of course, academic intervention services. So at the bottom right, you see some information, right? You go back to 1920 school year, you had about a 65%, a 53% passing rate at Algebra 1, and 2021, 65 at geometry, 72, 74, Algebra 2, 84, 78. And as we continue, so the small group instruction, some of the strategy deeper, sort of going deeper into what happens in the classroom. So these are where those strategies are sort of converted into reality and applied to the student setting and the learning setting, right? So the teachers clearly target specific areas, specific skills, right? We have begun also to leverage far more technology, such as the Desmos calculators that we have available, Excel and Delta Math. There are software system that students can receive as much information as possible. Also do a lot of self tutoring and the support system with work assigned by the teachers. Then in the box below, you see how a teacher can sort of just create an activity for a whole class target, a group A target, a group B target, sort of speaking about the same topic, but breaking it down different per group, per need, specifically related to where the area that we identify needed some remediation. Some of the things that has also been taking place now for a while, which is wonderful at New Rochelle High School, is the Summer Algebra Institute is a wonderful, nifty little program. It's a 3 8-day session at New Rochelle High School. The last program that took place over the summer, 51 students participated. It's open to all 8th graders to sort of participate. And then you have our academic intervention services. There's a pilot going on where you have 4 sections of that pilot going on. And we're going to show you the impact that doing these little things and sort of making sure that we put them in place and we do it with the best and the highest level of efficiency, they do produce at the end, they do produce. So if we look at some of the data when it comes to Algebra 1, remember, this is a critical course for any high school student. They cannot just simply move forward without this course and get on that track towards graduation on time, right? So you look back in 2021, quarter 2 is a 70%, 2022, you have 78%, right? Quarter 1, we began at 68%. We make a nice jump for quarter 2 at 78%. But if we look at those students that attended that summer institute, right, you have 88 and 90% of those students passing that course. And then you look at those students that sort of part of that pilot for the AIS, you have an 84 and 94% of those students passing the course. So with that, we sort of want to move into the next phase, which is to thank and just to go over our community engagement and our partners. I mean, they have been instrumental in making sure that we not only provide our students with a rich academic experience at New Rochelle High School, but also that we provide them with an incredible amount of diverse opportunities for them to engage in the school setting. Sort of taking care of our SEL and our academic components holistically. Because yes, as we continue to push for academic rigor, academic success, right? We also want to make sure that we pair that with a healthy sort of component, SEL component, so that way the student are also able to develop those interpersonal skills and also have that ownership about their high school. This is theirs, right? They belong here. This is their building. So we want to make sure that that ownership is there. And we have Hope Store, which has been incredibly helpful, right? Teaching our students about what an unhealthy relationship looks like, helping them how to identify an unhealthy relationship, helping them identify sort of behaviors, right? Consent, what is consent, right? Making sure that they understand that. You have also My Sister Place, which is specific, right? Has been here in our health classes, providing with workshops, providing our students an opportunity to answer more questions about how do they develop these healthy friendships? How do they sort of commingle with their friends? It's critical. But also we have New Beginnings, which offer dance, right? Dancing in school, moving your body, sort of getting yourself to do different things. Jiu-jitsu as well, martial arts has been a very attractive piece of our extended day opportunities that we do offer our students at the high school. Of course, we have the Boys and Girls Club, but we collaborate with them consistently at many different levels. Power of Peace. By the way, speaking about Power of Peace, those students that are doing the level 2 Power of Peace training, they're going to be participating at our faculty meeting in June, and they're going to be demonstrating for the faculty some of the stuff that they learned. Our after-school program, the Hope Community Service, MBK. And of course, we have robotics, VEX. They have been incredibly helpful to our high school and sort of providing our students with all those opportunities. Regeneron has always been there. The New Rochelle Youth Bureau, Luca teaching our parents, Latino parents about college, how to pay for school, how to find funding for that. Mercy College, Monroe College, Syracuse through our SUPA program. And of course, Worcester Community College through our early college experience program that we have with them and our partnership. And with that, we end for tonight. We open the floor for some questions. And we hope that we stay within the time frame, and we are open for any questions.
Thank you so much, Principal Ortiles. Do any of my colleagues have questions? I see that some of my colleagues are down there. Ms. Barbosa?
Thank you, both of you, for giving us a clear presentation. I do have a few questions because I could stand here and congratulate you on every single thing. That would take probably longer than what you've presented. However, I do have questions. With restorative justice, with Power for Peace, with SEL, have you considered the invisible child? Whom do I address? The child who is not athletic, is not artistic or not publicly artistic, the child who is not a club member, the child who is afraid to go out. How have these children been embraced, or how can they be embraced? What about the children in the alternative school? Have they been included? I know, Dr. Artiles, you said that they would be included as part of the high school because they are part of our entire unity. How has the village of Syracuse University or Monroe College, not just the building, or any of these other places, Hope or whatever, how have they embraced our invisible children? Because with over 3,000 children, even if you hit 2,500 or 3,000, we still have children who need to have a voice. I don't propose to give you an answer to that. I do see how hard you are working. I do see that the SEL has been in place. I do applaud the Power for Peace. I do applaud all the academics and the APs and everything else. I am still concerned about how we embrace our invisible children, because there are many, and those are the children we need to move forward just as much as every other child with a loud voice.
Thank you.
And that is a wonderful question, because that is the main goal of embracing all these community partners, right? To ensure that we offer those opportunities. They come into the classrooms, right? And the classrooms are not picked specifically about grade level or subject or ability. They come into classroom. We also have something new that we began at the high school, which is a student advisory board. It's a group of students that came together. Our goal is to grow that number of students to 16, totally volunteer, right? Where those students are also going to be working to share that information. There's another program that we're going to be creating, which is a town hall style at the high school as well. We're actually going to be hosting our first one this Friday in the Linda Kelly Theater with some member of our student advisory board. And it's open door during lunch for any student to come in, right? So the guidance counselor corner at the cafeteria has been also incredibly successful. in reaching every student because they're already there at the middle, in the library, in the cafeteria. So the counselor is there, is clearly identified. Every student can go to that school counselor, ask any question. It doesn't have to be their school counselor, right? But they have a person in there. We also partner up with the Boys and Girls. We also have a Boys and Girls corner, right? That goes to a different location in the high school. So we are sort of doing all those things to make sure that we cast the widest net possible to just get as many students, right? Because yes, I agree, right? It is intimidating at times for students to play sport or to try out for the team. So it is intimidating for them sometimes to try for those high level courses. So we can just not concentrate on that and forget about the school as a whole. So I appreciate that comment.
Especially,
Yeah.
we sometimes have invisible students who are our top ranking students, who are not the ones who go out and say, can you help me? I think we need on all levels. And again, I'm being the devil's advocate. I am promoting for every child. Do we know how many children feel invisible? Is there some way? Because I see all the incredible things being set up with the restorative and with the Power for Peace. Have we an idea of how many children feel invisible, especially with what's happening in today's day and age and with the news promoting how even very successful students are struggling? We need to take care of as many children as possible. So your plate is full. We are here to help you. I want that plate to be able to be lightened and everything off it so our children, each and every child, can succeed.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Ms. Brooks?
I first want to piggyback on what Ms. Bavosa said and underline, I think in a future presentation, understanding how many kids have been hit by each of these efforts. And I noticed that as well in my notes, just I was curious. You had numbers for some parts of the presentation, but for Power of Peace, there wasn't a number of how many students had participated. And I just want to underscore, I think so many of your efforts are great for the student who's looking for help, but there are many students who probably don't even know that they need that help and that connection. And so a systematic sense of how are these students being touched by these efforts and how are you accounting for the students that may be falling through the cracks that Ms. Bavosa just mentioned. So I just want to underscore her point, but my question is a slightly different one, which is, you talked about the STAR assessments and some of the other ways that the high school assesses students and tracks their academic progress, but I'm curious about how this information is or isn't communicated to parents. I mean, as a high school parent myself, I didn't know my kid was still taking the STAR assessment, nor do I know how she did on them. That's kind of shocking to me, given that I'm on the board and I check home access all the time. So I would really encourage you to really think through how parents are getting information about the progress of their students, regardless of their academic achievement, whether they're a top student, a middle student, a student that's struggling. Parents want to know, one, that their kid is being considered individually, and two, that how they're doing day in and day out. And that doesn't mean necessarily a daily reminder, but I had no idea that that she was taking these assessments this year. And I would love to know how she's doing, especially given the effects of the pandemic. So that's not really a question to answer now, but I found it interesting and useful to understand how you think about assessing the population at the population level. But in the end, every kid is someone's child, grandchild, et cetera. And I don't feel necessarily that connection, that parent or that homeschool connection is as strong as it could be.
Thank you. Ms. Williams?
Thank you, Dr. Artiles. Thank you, Ms. Amini, for your wonderful presentation. Thank you for giving us all of this data. And I'm really excited because we're in the process of creating our strategic plan. So I just have some questions, not to be answered now, but just questions to think about. So slide number 10, NRHS performance indicator graduation rate, 2016 to 2021. So it seems like our graduation rate has been static at about 82%. So moving forward, how can we get that rate to move to at least 90%? And how long will that take? So that's my first question. The second question is in reference to slide number 14. How many students are enrolled in just one AP class? Because we have one or more, but how many are enrolled in just one? And how many students are not enrolled in any AP classes at all? And I'm thinking the kids who are enrolled in one class, maybe we can move them to be enrolled in another class.
Yeah, and again, and that's a great question about AEP, and because the critical, and both questions, and I will provide some information about the first one. How do we move the graduation rate? The key is in the 9th grade. That's the key. And we have identified, yes, algebra is an issue, right? We have identified that, and we are working on that. We're instituting some of the strategies that we put in as demonstrated in the presentation, and those percentages are looking far better. But it depends how we do on that 9th grade, because that is what sort of drive how many students are on track for graduation. So that's key, right? When it comes to the AP level courses, yes, that's a great question, right? Because the goal is AP level courses is more of an experience. We want the students to have that experience. We allow them to experience college level work in high school, sort of prepares them better for what's coming, right? So how do we motivate our students to take more, that student that is just sort of tiptoeing into the AP experience by taking one course, all right? So how can you try two, right? So it's the type of support. What do we do to sort of motivate that student? Some of the strategies that we have put in place is that advanced course information night was incredibly important because it was an opportunity for those students that were on the fence to say, okay, mom, let's log in into AP psychology. Let's see how it is. The teacher can sort of tell us. We get to meet the teacher before signing for the course. The student get to sort of measure whether there's any chemistry with the AP psychology teacher, right? And that is one of those steps that allow us to grow the program for that experience. So we're going to be expanding on our course information night, sort of provide more information, more robust data for to the parents and information, and access to those meetings, those Zoom meetings that the teachers host after school, so the way they can ask questions is access to questions, access to information. So that will be critical. So definitely take that into consideration. Thank you.
I just want to make one more comment so my colleagues have a chance to speak. Thank you for bringing it to our attention that achievement in Algebra 1 is an indicator of high school graduation. So we need the kids to pass Algebra 1. So just, thinking ahead as a district, in my mind, we really need to start with pre-K. So starting from pre-K, how can we get our kids in a position where they will be able to be on or above grade level in Algebra 1, and hopefully that will help to increase the graduation rate down the line.
Totally right, and I'm ready.
But we have to backtrack from the beginning.
Ms.
Thank you.
Castellano-Manaya.
First of all, I would just like to uplift that the connection between SEL and academic outcomes. I absolutely love the example you shared of a restorative circle where students themselves focused on the quality of work. It's not about the adults telling them a problem and how to fix it or even motivating them. They have the answers. And I love that you created a space where the students themselves were pushing each other. For me, a theme of student leadership is developing, and I definitely see it helping propel the perception of our high school and the reality of our high school in the years ahead. So this is very exciting to me. One area that I definitely did not hear and I'm curious about is around teacher practice. And this week, as we appreciate our teachers and appreciate instruction and student engagement, I believe that there are teachers, I know there are teachers in this school where students want to be in their classrooms every single day. They're engaged, They're proud of their learning and their work. They're engaged in, college level discourse and challenge that's connected to the real world. But there may be other classrooms where that's not happening. And I don't think we should just throw money at it or get consultants from the outside or buy new curriculum. No, I think the answers are really right here in the building. And so my question is, how are we thinking about professional learning as a school community, building on the strengths and the instructional practices of those teachers that really get it and that are truly engaging students and really diminishing any disparities in the classroom and propelling the academics of all their students. I know they're here.
One of the things that we use consistently at the high school is a phrase called the power of difficult conversations, right? Because we need to have difficult conversations, right? And of course, your statement is one of those difficult conversations. How do we clearly come to the forefront and speak about that, right? Connection. Because we know that attendance is connected to connection, right? If a student is connected with a teacher, they want to be there. It doesn't matter if they're tired, sick, they have a headache, doesn't matter if it is raining, they might be a little wet, but they want to go to Mr. So-and-so class or Mrs. So-and-so class. So our department chairs, they do a wonderful job, and our director, they do an incredible job when it comes to that. So yes, but I completely, that is an ongoing process, and that's sort of is taking the attitude that we are developing at high school, which is consistently evaluating ourselves, evaluate our practice, right? It doesn't matter how well we're doing, we have to evaluate, and if we need to shift, we shift, and identify areas where we can make things better. Mr. Raymond spoke about heroes, right? I speak about Formula One. I love Formula One. The beauty about Formula One is that these are the most advanced cars on earth. But yet this team, they break these cars down every single year because they know there's something more, right? So that's the attitude. It's continuing the constant search for better consistently.
Ms. Moselli?
Hi, Dr. Ortiz. Thank you for your presentation. It's always nice to see you. I guess when I'm off the board, I can call you Dr. A.
That's my name around here. The kids, they tend to get confused with is Artiles, Artios, or what is it? So now it's Dr. A.
I like that.
Yeah.
There's so many great things in your presentation that I wanted to touch upon, but I also want to sort of some of the things that my colleagues have said, in terms of what Margaret said and what Adina said in terms of invisible students. In your presentation, you went through all of the classic ways that students are sort of engaged, what the outreach is in terms of a normal flow chart in a school. But to what Ms. Katie was saying, Ms. Castellano-Manayos was saying, you do have remarkable teachers. And I know a number of students in the school who during lunchtime go and sit in teachers' classrooms. Yes. And those teachers are just an extra level, another layer of the outreach and the connectivity in this building. It's really palatable. I know that there are teachers that are so remarkable that they have encouraged students to try after school activities in art and in other areas where the student would not have necessarily gravitated, but they did because of the remarkable nature of the teacher. So it is 100% true that our teachers are in terms of inspiring our students academically and of course encouraging attendance. But in terms of also emotional support, there are many teachers that support students that don't attend their classes at all. And it's really wonderful to hear those types of things. I also wanted to point out the graduation rate. I know that Valerie, Ms. Williams was talking about a sort of stagnant graduation rate. Tough question for you to inherit, given it's been that way for a decade and you come in on the tail of COVID. But if anyone can do it, you can do it with the new central administrative staff in place. But one of the things that was striking was that we're flat in a year where regions were not required. And to me, that's a little alarming. Not a criticism of the district so much so as it's more just the fact that, you know, this should signal to the board and the community that it is likely our graduation rate will go down this year and maybe even next year. Because if we were flat with no regents, now regents are required, you know, we should have that in mind. And I'm just wondering whether or not in conjunction with monitoring SEL and academic achievement, whether or not we've been projecting graduation rates for the. Do you have, sorry, do you have an idea what the graduation rate this year in 2021-22 may look like?
That again, that would be a question that I would love to provide some sort of view into it. The only way to sort of come up with that is to average, let's say, our 3 quarters and sort of come up with a number. It would be highly fluid, right? Because it's not determining. Right now, we are in the process. We're working extremely hard to ensure that we begin our certification process nice and early, right? To not only identify those students that are ready to go, but those students that are 0.5 credit, close to, like they just missed that 0.5 credit, right? So we are identifying those students. We're putting systems in place to provide those opportunities, understanding, right, that everybody's coming back and they sort of getting acclimated to the school system. We are also at a disadvantage. We were not here for 2 months, right? So we put all those things into account. And I believe that at the other end, we are going to be okay, right? We are confident about the work that we're doing. We're confident about the efforts that are being put in place. We're confident about the systems that are being created to ensure that multiple safety nets are created and multiple fail-safe switch are put in place so they can just go off and ring all those alarms for us whenever that student is getting close, but sort of not there yet. Again, I would love to provide you with a number, but at this point, I just, it will not be something that is reflective of what the end product is going to be.
Okay, well, I thank you for your honesty in that area. I just think that as a community and as a board, we might just sort of brace ourselves for a little dip in the graduation rate, given the circumstances. Mr. Artiles, Dr. Artiles, rather, I really want to thank you for joining our New Rochelle team. You haven't been here very long, but you've already had quite an impact. And it is very evident that you are very eager to engage with students and give students the agency required to sort of lead the educational process that they're in and makes them very vested in what they're doing. And I really thank you for everything that you're doing. And even though I'll be leaving the board, I'll certainly be watching your trajectory. And I'm really excited about what it is that you've been doing. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And I do want to add to that, that to work for a superintendent that consistently talks about the value of student voice and the power of student voice, that is highly motivating to anyone for us to also do the same thing at the building level. So I am incredibly happy to begin that process here at the high school. And yes, our students do have a voice now. They do have it and they're using it. It's difficult and it's a lot of work, but they're using it. And it's a beautiful experience every day. So I want to thank the board for supporting that practice as well from our superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper.
Thank you so much, Madam President. I would love to dovetail off of just about every comment made by every one of my colleagues prior to this. First and foremost, sorry as I hit my mask. I would like to take a moment and say congratulations to you, the staff, the administration, all the fantastic support people here at the high school. I think as a board member and also as a community member, we lose sight often that not only were you out for the first 2 months, but this is your first year. And the questions you're getting are as if you've been here for a much longer time. So congratulations on the amazing work you've done so far.
Thank you.
That said, I'm going to go to a little bit of everything, and I'll use your Formula One example.
Yes.
So let's consider this high school for a moment. The Red Bull team about 4 years ago.
Oh, 4 years ago, that I take that, not now.
No, no,
Yes.
we don't have a Max Verstappen, although I would argue that you're a little close. But looking at Red Bull found, as they looked at all the other teams around, that there was a very tiny piece of technology that the Mercedes team had developed to cool the braking system of their car better than anybody else. And they took this one little thing and turned it into a championship race in 3 years. And my question to you is, taking all the parts and pieces that every one of my colleagues has brought forward so far, and looking at all those little parts and pieces, is what is that little piece of magic that we need to find that will bring it all together and take us from a fourth, fifth argument running for a few points a weekend to competing for the Constructors' Cup?
He's taking multiple shots right now. I mean, I am a Mercedes-Benz fan, and that's okay for Red Bull people to do that. This is more banter here when it comes to Formula One fans, but that's okay. Yeah, we're not doing that well. However, we tell you, what is that piece? Ninth grade. Ninth grade. If we get the passing rate up in the ninth grade, where we are in the 90 percentile across the board, that's the piece. That's the piece.
So I'll take that
that's the
question
piece.
and I'll expand it and say, if that's really the key and the focus, then how do we bring to bear, or how do we develop systems and processes that allow the information to be brought forward, not just inside the building, but also to the students and to the parents to be able to track that? Where is, or how do we get the dashboard? How do we get everyone involved and moving towards that same goal? And the students themselves, I heard from many of them, if they knew their grades on an ongoing basis, they would work that little bit harder when they realize they have an 89% and they want to be at a 90, or they might, put in a little extra effort if they're at a 74 and could bring it to a 75, or the parents who really want to know, how are my children doing today? How are the kids? How are the students? And so how do we holistically look forward and figure out some concept of technology, integration with the teachers, integration with, to your point, the last thing we want is somebody to miss graduation by 0.5. But how do we start tracking all this in an easy to read, easy to access, technological, forward-thinking way?
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go last. I think it's my turn. Mr. Cooper, you were done? Yeah.
Sure,
don't-
thank you.
I don't have a question. My colleagues asked really great questions. I just want to say that the centering of the student voice and really, I've just been really impressed even with my own student, the maturity that the growth that I think our students achieve in this school is really incredible. I think your mission of them becoming these global citizens, I see it, and it's as a parent, as a board member, as a volunteer, it's like exciting to see it in your own child too. So, and I see it in all the children that, the students who come here to speak, the student performances. It's really powerful. And I thank you.
Thank you. It just coming in here every day, it is, to me, I mean, that is the greatest experience that I have every single day, coming here every day. Except for my daughter, she sort of go the other way whenever I walk her into the building, but that's okay. But everyone else is wonderful. I have an open door policy. That means that my office is constantly populated by students consistently. They just walk by the secretary. They say, I'm going to do some homework, sit in the office. They need like that space. But it's also creating that environment where they feel comfortable. They stop and they say hello. And that in the morning outside welcoming the student, we have a welcoming committee where we're in different locations receiving our kids. So they see those faces consistently. We play music in the morning. We sort of do a lot of little different things. So it's just to create that sense of ownership, happiness. The happiest they are, the more they want to be here. The more ownership they have, the harder they work, because they take ownership of this and they want the school to do well. And that is critical for us to continue working on that.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. You're off the hook now.
Thank you. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
I would like to invite two of my colleagues. We're going to move on to the next part of the agenda. Ms. Castellano Manaya and Mr. Cooper are part of a subcommittee, a board subcommittee, looking at new board member onboarding practices. Really with the goal of getting new board members up and running, you know, and knowing what they're doing by the time of reorg. So Ms. Castellano Manaya and Mr.
Just
Cooper.
Asking if the presentation is loaded. So. Be awesome. And here's the clicker.
Give a little context. Okay, cool. So I'm honored to be here presenting today on behalf of the Board of Education. And one of the things that's important for the success of a school district is having a cohesive and strong Board of Education that knows its role and also knows how not to overstep and how to be a governing body. And so one of the things we wanted to do, just like we're talking about teaching and learning with our superintendent, with our principals, with our teachers, we also want to make sure that we are holding ourselves accountable to learning, growing, and improving as a functioning board.
And to that end, sorry, my mic needs to be a little higher. To that end, the group of the four of us, Mr. Iannuzzi, Ms. Castellano, myself, and Ms. Ross, spent several meetings and a lot of emails back and forth going over how do we best do this, and very much tossing around ideas and trying to say what is the best way to make sure that not only do we have a board member who is going to be helpful and productive over the entire course, but also how do we best enable them to hit the ground running. And so with that, we would look and say, the New York State School Board Association had a really great quote that said, essentially, it takes about 3 years to build a board member, to really train and educate a board member to understand all the parts and pieces of what board service is, what all the laws and regulations and all the roles and responsibilities of a board member are.
Many districts also have a 3-year board term. We have a 5-year board term. 5 years, half of a decade. It is a long time, but it is also what I feel is needed to make sure that we can effectively transform and support change in a district and elevate a district. So I'm committed. We are committed to this term, and we want to make sure that there's continuously a process of supporting our new board members so that we together can be effective. No single board member can be successful on their own. None. We are a governing body of 9, and we have to collaborate.
And with that in mind, we had one basic goal. How do we establish an onboarding model that will set up new members for success? And as we looked at this, we kind of bannered around a whole bunch of ideas, but we came up with 3 primary pillars. We talked about really scaffolding, making sure that we're supporting the actual board member. We talked about mentoring, and we talked about professional development. And we spent a lot of time really going through kind of the nuts and bolts of each one of these, realizing that a board member doesn't come to the board once they're elected ready to go. There is a tremendous amount of learning. There's a tremendous amount of reading. For anyone that has never seen the New York State educational law book, it looks like a phone book. It is literally this thick and 8.5 by 11, and fantastic reading is if you need to get to sleep. But we wanted to make sure that we were providing not just the nuts and bolts, but also the mentoring. Because one of the amazing things of the board, as Ms. Castellano mentioned, is we are a board of 9. And we are 9 different people with 9 unique perspectives and 9 different backgrounds. And we feel that the strength of the board as a cohesive unit really is much stronger as a whole. So we wanted to make sure that those board members felt supported with an individual mentor to say, this person is going to help you and guide you and reach out to you. And when you have questions, feel free to call them. And the last thing we looked at was the professional development, where we talked about how do we make sure that not just for a new member, but also for the board as an entity and it's in its entirety, that we are providing ongoing professional development that's appropriate and needed throughout not just the individual year of a new board member coming on, because that's every year, but also throughout the term of a 5-year engagement.
So with that being said too, we have to be honest. None of us has 24 hours a day to be able to do much of the needed learning and onboarding. And so we also have to think strategically. How do we prioritize certain things, even in the calendar, that absolutely must be understood, such as reorganization in July, which occurs every year, understanding the budget, understanding contracts. So what we did is together, we came up with basically a professional development calendar together with advice of former board members, current board members, in making sure that we're being strategic so as not to overwhelm a new board member as they're coming in. Of course, they're ready, excited to roll up their sleeves and get right into it, but we also have to pace them and make sure we're being strategic about this professional learning.
So to look at some of the specifics, we kind of called out some, this is kind of a 30,000 foot perspective for this presentation, but these were some of the things that as we met, we talked about as it relates to scaffolding, because mentorship is a pretty straightforward concept. Excuse me, I need more coffee. Mentoring is a pretty straightforward concept. So we looked at and spent a lot of time on the scaffolding and the professional development. The professional development side was tremendously relating it to a calendar and a cycle of what is required by the board throughout a traditional school year. But the scaffolding, we talked about what's it going to take to really help teach a new board member. We talked about establishment of relationships between the board member and the administration, making sure that that individual is aware of who are the assistant superintendents and start to get to know the superintendent, the assistant superintendents. We wanted to make sure that we also provided systems and processes specifically to provide access to the materials. As crazy as it sounds, making sure that a board member has their email set up and is on the distribution list. And the same way that we look at how do we best enable the students for success on day one of a school year is the same idea that we brought to how do we set up a board member who's coming on for success for day one of board service. Obviously, materials and everything else come with that. And we want to make sure that we give them almost like a syllabus.
So with the professional learning too, we've gone into retreats and we go into retreats several times a year. And we wanted to anchor ourselves in a key text. So this year we are using Michael Fullen, part of our retreat, and really looking at governance models. You know, we're in 2022 and we have to make sure that we are moving with the times and being democratic and really helping elevate our district, but prioritizing certain theories and research that have proven to be effective all throughout the United States of America in driving student achievement. And so choosing the reading material to prioritize is also a part of our goal in scaffolding the professional learning of our board members.
We also wanted to take into account that there are a couple of things that a board member, as a new board member, are immediately thrown into, one of which is reorganization, and the second of which is the retreat that we have to work forward on strategic development, on budgeting, on all sorts of things that the SI brings forward. And so to give you some idea what some of those scaffolding examples might look like, we talked about information access, everything from email accounts to board docs to the New York State School Board Administration, making sure that they have their logins and can get to the courses. We talked about the suggested reading that Ms. Castellano-Manaya was just talking about. Introduction to board and district organization, just understanding the functional organization. This is a $300 million a year entity with 11,000 students, staff, and administrators. That's a tremendously large company. Talking about what to expect, kind of what is a typical board meeting? How does it function structurally? What is executive session? How do we do all these things and what's expected as a board member? Looking at the pillars of the board, which is really talking about the strategic roadmap, the district goals, governance, making sure that all those parts and pieces are brought forward and educated. And, you know, important areas of understanding, everything from what is a collective bargaining agreement? What are our CBAs? How do we talk about the committees, the budgeting, special education, policies, all those things that we are as board members expected to know.
And finally, just a note about this scaffolding too. It's important, and even as we're going into election cycle, to remember that when you are a Board of Education member, you are one of 9, and you may have your own community groups, your own passions, your own interests based on your own family, but you are representing all of New Rochelle, all schools, all demographics. And it's important that we come together and we support each other to elevate the district, and that we all collaborate throughout. And so we found that this was an important way to make sure that we're all on the same page and driving toward that North Star of achievement and elevating our district.
And to that end, we wanted to talk a little bit about professional development and what are those parts and pieces might look at. And we talked about how do we align the professional development with board service across the year. So making sure that we looked at how parts and pieces of professional development build upon themselves, starting off understanding the requirements of what board service is all about from a legal perspective, what executive content is, then looking at the required courses that we're all required to take as board members, the board service and the fiscal training courses. Looking at understanding such key concepts as what is special education is all about, what are the mandates and the understandings in the laws, looking at the New York State laws, what are things like the open meeting law, what is a FOIL request, all those parts and pieces. Education law, tenure, Ed Law 2D for those of us in the technology wonk space have read that all too much. And quite honestly, some of the overarching topics that we as board members interact with day in and day out. Safety and security, discipline, child abuse. What are the reporting requirements as a board member, as a district? So we took all these parts and pieces, and over several meetings, we came up with a calendar that we're kind of proposing. It is in board docs, and it is being put forth to our fellow board members to try and put some structure, because one of the things that we wanted to make sure is, while our board service is however many years we're on it, 5, 6, 10, however many it is, we want to make sure that we're setting up the board for future success. And we want to try to put a system and a process around what is the onboarding look like of a board member and the continual professional development of the board in its entirety.
Next. Okay, so last thing I wanted to just mention too is the importance of understanding, again, the role of the board, what it is and what it is not. And I'll even admit this for myself. I'm constantly asking my colleagues to check me. I am an educator. I do work in this field, but that does not mean that I am working for the district. I am a volunteer. I am charged with governance. I am charged with the budget, accountability for our superintendent. Those are my charges. And so it's important for me to also know and hold myself and hold my colleagues accountable to know how to be a supportive, effective board member, but also how to get out of the way and make sure that we are trusting our phenomenal professionals to do the work of leading our district.
And with that, we simply ask any questions from our fellow colleagues.
Yes, do any of my colleagues have questions? But first, I say thank you. That was awesome. Okay. Ms. Williams.
Thank you very much, Katie, Adam, William, and Roshani. Thank you for doing this work. And I think this is really helpful moving on, and it's going to be helpful for people who want to be board members in the future. So thank you for doing this work. It's very helpful.
Ms. Brooks, and then Ms. Moselli.
So actually, my question is really sort of next steps in terms of thinking through, process, and this is a conversation for us as a board to formalize this. Is this a resolution that we then put together? How much? And I think my only question to that end is, I think this is great, but we know life happens. So how do we build in some flexibility into whatever our calendar is in a way that doesn't let things get away from us, but also recognizes there are floods or there are pandemics or other things. So it's really a question for us to just think about, how do we build a resolution that holds us to this to some extent and provides guidance for future boards without overly tying our hands or overburdening staff at times when they may have other priorities.
Sure. We addressed that exact question internally. And in fact, that was probably about a third of our last meeting. There were two things that we came up with. Number one, we're not really sure it's a resolution. What we kind of felt was to formalize this, we actually were hoping to get this included into the board operating procedures. We felt that might be the right place to formalize it and systematize it and capture it for all posterity moving forward. The second half of that, to your point of flexibility, was what we designed with the other document were kind of modules. We thought that if we put together essentially syllabuses by time and said, this needs to get done by, and it's all suggested, this is not a hard, fast rule of you must read this book by Thursday. It's try to read the book before we get to the retreat. Try to make sure that we get the meetings in before the summer is over. There was kind of a framework of modules that we put together where we kind of broke things into three big clumps and said, here's clump 1 or module 1, 2, and 3. So we've developed syllabuses and concepts to be encapsulated in particular areas of time. So hopefully we accounted for a little flexibility in the larger scheme of, hey, it would be great if this got done by this time.
Ms. Belli and then Ms. Babosa.
Of course, I want to thank the four of you for this effort. This is really wonderful. And it's really wonderful on two counts. One, it really ensures that the board remains sort of on task. And a board that's on task is much more productive for the community than a board that's sort of doing its own thing. But additionally, these types of commitments by the board to remain a sound and effective board creates an environment where the district is much more likely to retain talent and to get talent to come to our district, because super talents, they don't want to work in a circus, and they don't want to work in a place where there's constant anxiety and revolving doors and the types of things that unfortunately Fuse and our administrative union have had to deal with for a very long time. So this type of commitment is really important, not just to ourselves, well, I'm not here anymore, but to yourselves, but also to our staff. So I really appreciated that. Two other things, just in terms of practically, I would make sure that this calendar includes a board self-evaluation and the superintendent's evaluation in terms of effective timeline, because that always slips from boards. And the other thing that I would do is I would tether a lot of this curriculum back to items that can be taught by council, because they're the ones who are best prepared to teach it, and it's covered under their retainer.
Excellent suggestions. And we actually did review all of these materials with legal, as well as board leadership, to make sure that, again, we have that, we know we're a young board, right? Even the 4 people on this committee, we're young members. And so we want to make sure that we're clearing it every step of the way and having checks and balances. And to your point about the self-evaluation of the board and the evaluation of superintendent, I'm so glad you brought that up, because the last thing we want, same with our students or teacher evaluation. Imagine being evaluated and having no advanced knowledge, or having to complete a rubric that you're seeing the same day that you're completing it. The whole idea is to work backwards. And so I really appreciate that comment, and I'll make sure, and we've discussed this too, that we're giving that professional learning an opportunity to our board members in retreat, so that you know what's expected and we know how we're holding ourselves and our superintendent accountable well before we actually are sitting and filling it out. So thank you for that.
And one other thing, to exactly where you were going, that was my first action, was to reach out to legal counsel and to get the professional development modules that they have. And so we use those as the foundational base for a lot of our conversations, talking as to which modules go into which set of curriculum with which time. So we use that as a base and built upon that for other areas of professional development that we might want to look into, but it's fantastic. And so absolutely, that was kind of our core. How can we leverage that relationship? So thank you.
We shouldn't take any more time, but board colleagues, please, please, please.
Wait, Ms. Babosa, and then I want to say a little something.
And also just please give us feedback on this too, because it's an ongoing process, even after today.
First of all, thank you to the four of you for putting all the extra time in. I think your point that we are volunteers and this is something that's added to our lives to enrich not only our families, but also the families throughout the community. I'd also like to thank the public for listening to this because I'm not sure if you understood why, but as a first-year member, I am grateful to see this put into place because I wish some of it had been there before those of us who were new on the board were on the board. Clarity can create a better vision, and we are hopeful that we can put that forth. Thank you so much for your time.
Hey, guys. Yeah, I just want to say, you know, my seat is the solo seat. And in some ways, it's like you're out there in the ocean and you're like, what am I doing? So I am very grateful that this committee was formed and that you're really setting up best practices for onboarding new new board members. And I do agree. I think the place for it is the board operating procedures. That's due for a refresh, and then we would adopt that via resolution. So I do think that we should really look to integrate this into that document. But thank you so much. I mean, the fact is, people don't always, it's intimidating, right? You're like, why would I commit to 5 years of like fighting and going gray? And I'm gray. I'm definitely gray. But this is, it's transparent. It's about cohesion, right? It's about how do we build that cohesive plane at 30,000 feet and support one another so that we don't have to we're volunteers, right? So we don't sacrifice families and lives, and that we don't sacrifice the district. We don't sacrifice our students, and that the community knows what is going into onboarding our new board members, and that every single person is going to be treated in a respectful way and is going to be part of the team. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the feedback, everyone.
Okay, colleagues, why don't we go back to the dais? Okay. Do any of my colleagues have liaison reports? We may have covered most of it in our previous section. Okay, so we are going to move on to public comment. I'm going to read a statement. We recently changed our public comment policy. Good evening. The Board of Education encourages public comment on school-related matters at board meetings to allow members of the public to address the board. Per the board's new public comment policy adopted at the April 5th meeting, a period not to exceed 45 minutes will be set aside during our first scheduled meeting of the month, and a period not to exceed 30 minutes will be set aside during our second scheduled meeting of the month for public comment. These periods may be extended by a simple majority vote of the board. Individuals wishing to address the board will advise the clerk of the board no later than 3:30 p.m. on the day of the meeting. The request may be made by phone call or email to the BOE clerk. For purposes of following up with speakers later, the district may request the speaker's preferred contact information, such as a telephone number or email address, or speak with them in person. And the town, we also might request the town that they live in. Any group or organization wishing to address the board must identify a single spokesperson. No speaker will be permitted to speak longer than 3 minutes. Thank you. This one works better. I appreciate it. No speaker will be permitted to speak longer than 3 minutes. Speakers may not give unused time to other speakers. If a person requests to speak after 3:30 p.m., speakers may sign up in person at the meeting and will be afforded the opportunity to speak for 2 minutes during the public comment period if time permits. The board will not permit in public session the naming of or discussion involving individual district personnel or students. Persons wishing to discuss matters involving individual district personnel or students should present their comments and/or concerns to the superintendent during regular business hours. Our first speaker will be Mr. Joe Andrews. He's not here. Okay. Mr. Robert Cox. This time you have 3 minutes.
All right, well, I'm starting mine now. My name is Robert Cox. I live at 10 LeCount Place in New Rochelle. So I'm going to talk about the public comment cap more, but not tonight. Just to say that I think you did something really foolish and bad. I was also going to speak to you about the New Rochelle Fund for Educational Excellence. I had a story written. Several of you are on the fund, but the president of the board contacted me before I came here, and he wants to speak to me tomorrow. So I'm not going to talk about that either. So what do I got left? So I heard mention of the Huguenot Academy. As some of you know, I spent a lot of time doing work on the Huguenot Academy last year as a co-chair of the Health and Safety Committee. I met with an awful lot of people, wrote an extensive history of the program going back to like 1968. And so I have, sort of a lot of thoughts about that. And I've seen the 140 facility, and it is what it is. Okay, let's just say that. Okay, a maybe necessary way station that actually accomplishes the one thing our committee heard the most from Huguenot parents and teachers last year, to get out of the high school as fast as possible, which was not actually part of our mandate from Superintendent Marrero at the time. But we also have the city manager on our committee who sits on the IDA, and he made it possible that the IDA will now give tax abatements to developers who will build out a new Huguenot Academy in one of their new buildings. I don't know that everybody really understands that, but we've had some changes with the business office and changes with the superintendent. I can't stress enough that that is a conversation that needs to happen well in advance of the lease expiring, which it will on 140 Huguenot, because these are conversations that can take minimum 3 years, 5 years. Okay. But I've met with the guy from RXR. I've met with Wilder Balfour, the building I live in. They're very interested to have those conversations. I'm going to tell you, to my knowledge, I think to their knowledge, nobody from this district is having those conversations about how they can build out space and what they're doing in the downtown to give the students the best possible facility. In fact, maybe the best facility any students have, because it would be a brand new, really nice building. So I would just strongly encourage you to focus on that. Well, something worked. Somebody, okay. So please focus on that, because I'll just end on this saying that I know why we're in 140. We needed to go, but if you walk through it, you realize it's not a forever home. And that's
Thank
what we're
you,
looking
Mr.
for.
Cox.
Okay.
Thank you. Ms. Miriam Desim.
Good evening. First, I want to say the talk that you had about onboarding, the thought that was in my mind is you should have these classes and workshops for everyone in the community. Do it before the person comes on the Board of Ed. That way you have a pool of people who are already knowledgeable, and also they're knowledgeable about what you're doing and the expectations are better managed. I was also surprised that you said that you got to talk to council, because they're the ones, most of the stuff is from them. And in my mind, I'm thinking most of the stuff should be more education focused and more, what do we do in the district? So I thought that was interesting. I'll talk to you guys later about that. The budget. So this budget is incredibly insulting, the lack of information that's in here. And, comes here today and you present something, it's like, oh, minimum requirement is 3 components. Superintendent recommendations, this is the money that we want. And oh yeah, you got that straight. Hey, if you don't approve this budget, we're going to have a contingency so you feel guilty. Don't say no on the budget, even though we've been given very little information on what's in this budget. And I really feel that you guys voted on a budget. You don't know half of the stuff that's in that budget. For example, all the money that we have spent on Huguenot Academy monthly, been paying them $22,000 a month. Where is that in the budget? Do you know how much we spent? The $300,000 for fixings. How is that included in that money? I understand we're paying $22,000 a month for 140, which is way less than St. Gabe's. And St. Gabe's was only $10,000 a month. These are some of the details that we should know, and we don't. By the way, it is May, and the last announcement that was made is that the kids should be at Huguenot Academy by now. That is not the case. In fact, I wrote an email to you guys and said, I bet you that's not going to be the case. But more importantly, we have no information that in all of this that's been going on for an entire year, that we could not find a home for these kids at the high school, even though they're a part of the high school. Yeah, I'm glad you guys admitted that our kids are invisible to you, because that's exactly what it is. And you also made them homeless. We never understood. You never explained, what is the state looking for? What's missing in this location that you allowed this superintendent to go get in some backroom deal that nobody else understands? How did this happen? You haven't explained that. But what's missing? What's missing in that building that they can't get in there? Explain that to us. All of these things are missing in the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Desim. Mr. Malafitano.
Good evening again. A couple of thoughts. Ms. Williams was talking about graduation rate. What can we do? And somebody else, Mr. Cooper, I think, asked Mr. Artiles, what's the magic bullet? What can we do to try to improve ourselves? Well, I've been harping on this for I don't know how long, and it's gotten nowhere, but I'll say it again. There, on your new calendar for next year, there are 7 half-days for elementary school. That does not include the half-days for parent conferences. That's 3.5 days of learning down the toilet. You want to help kids learn? I was a teacher for 40 years. I liked having a half day. But you're a governing board. Act like it. Put a collective bargaining agreement in place that says professional development is after school. You don't have the guts to do that? What about you, Mr. Cooper? Make that one of your campaign proposals. Let me hear it from you. How about another idea to try to make parents more involved? You're talking about info to parents? How about a monthly track that parents can log into? It's not rocket science. That tells me as a parent how many minutes in a month my child was in science, math, English, history with their assigned teacher. Is that rocket science, Mr. Raymond? You want to empower parents with knowledge? I find out a lot of parents tell me the kids are sitting in the auditorium watching a movie. You wonder why our school district is ranked in the 40th or 50th percentile nationwide and statewide? You're worried about declining graduation rates. Do something affirmative. Do you have the guts, Mr. Cooper? Do you? Let me hear you say it. I haven't seen it in my decades of coming here to speak. Everybody, I feel like hate to say it, like I'm sitting in the back row of church. And everybody goes to sleep around here. $300 million for less than 10,000 kids, almost 30,000 a kid. And we're talking about a success rate that is in the toilet. And I'm talking about some simple proposals to increase class time and accountability, and it goes nowhere with this board. You ought to hang your heads in shame. But bottom line, what have you been focused on? Indigenous Peoples Day. I got up here, Mr. Cooper, and I asked you, please table this. Because many in the
Mr.
community are insulted by this
I'm
idea.
going to ask that you don't single out a specific board member.
He's
okay?
not an employee. So I
You
can
know what?
single him out. And he's a
He-
camp.
I
You're
would like
taking my
you
time
not to
away.
we are a board. We are a single entity.
Well,
We are
Mr.
a
Cooper
single entity.
and the board, does that help you? Mr. Cooper and the board? I asked you to please delay this and make your ruling and
Okay, Mr.
decision
Malfitano,
on the
thank
day.
you.
Look, you took my time. I'm asking for 10 seconds. Will you give it to me?
Happily.
Thank you. I can see you're very happy. I asked you as a board. You didn't even talk to the Calabria Society, oldest Italian organization, how they felt about it. It was a political decision. You show weakness by that. You could have made Indigenous Peoples Day the day after Thanksgiving,
Okay,
which has
Mr.
no name on
Malfitano,
it.
thank you.
That's why this board is a ridiculous board.
Have a good night.
Well,
Do
I
we have
will.
any other individuals who would like to speak?
Yes, Madam President, somebody from the audience asked if she would be able to have 3 minutes, as they did not sign up before for the public hearing and would like the 3 minutes.
Yes, they can have 3 minutes. Can you just announce them from where you are?
Sure, Ms. Dasim.
Oh, so this was from the budget hearing?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm confused. So she spoke for 3 minutes about the budget and now
She
this is
wanted
about
to
the
sign
regular
up
meeting?
for the budget hearing and the regular meeting.
Okay,
So
okay.
she's asking if she could have the additional 3
Yes.
minutes.
Thank you. There's a lot to say about the budget. So the additional things that I wanted to talk about, because most of that was focused on Huguenot, but the budget itself, in addition to not understanding all of the going-ons with the Huguenot Academy. You have an unprecedented amount of individuals being hired in the district at the administration level. And a lot of times you hear, well, a district our size, we should have more people to run it. And I understand that, but you need to explain what the roles are, what the responsibilities are, who we have now, what are they doing, where are we falling short that requires us to add additional people. And here's what the additional people are going to do. So for example, one of the things that you have claimed that we did better this time is, hey, we had 2 administrators in the superintendent's office, so administrative assistants. So we let one go, or we got rid of one position, let's say. Eventually that individual left also. But the point is that it's like, oh yeah, that was a cost saving. Look what we realized. But you did not, because you had a consultant working here for, last time we checked, $85,000. We paid a consultant from Sacramento. Most people don't understand and don't know this is going on. You have somebody working out of Sacramento for $85,000. Doing what? We have a large district. You mean to tell me we couldn't find somebody from here to do that? Where is that shown in the budget? Why was that approved? You are spending money left and right. The tutor.com, love the program. A lot of people are saying it's great, it's wonderful, and the idea is good, but okay, how much is it costing us? Come to understand, from February to June, which is the contract that we have right now, $10 a student for all 11,000 students. We're paying $102,000 for tutor.com. I know 11,000 students are going to use it. In addition to that, they can have it for free because Westchester County has it. Why aren't we paying maybe just for Westchester County has it until 10 p.m. We have it 24/7. Why aren't we paying for just maybe the additional hours? Because our kids are going to be working between 10 and 7 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes they do. I like to work at night, but at least we would spend the money that way. That's from February to June. If we do the 1-year contract, does that mean what? We're going to spend $20 per student, which is $200,000. How are we measuring the effectiveness of that? It isn't that it's not good. You got to give us more information. This stuff is insultingly diluted. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, we are going to move on to the new business consent agenda, personnel resolutions. Colleagues, I would like a motion in a second to approve consent agenda for personnel resolutions number 22-346, 1 through 15, number 22-347-1, number 22-348, 1 through 29, and number 22-349, 1 through 25, according to the recommended action for each item.
So moved. Castellano Minaya.
Second, Bavosa.
Brooks.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Congratulations, Mr. Hildebrand.
Woohoo. Okay, I would like a motion in a second to approve consent agenda for general resolutions number 22-350 through number 22-360, according to the recommended action for each item.
So moved, Brooks.
Second, Bavosa.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Our next meeting will be Wednesday, May 18th, 2022. It will be a committee of the whole. And it starts at 7:45 p.m.
Maybe we already did it.
Okay. Tonight, we are adjourning in the memory of Steve Brown, retired media production specialist district-wide, who passed away on February 28th, 2022. Priscilla Lattes, retired elementary teacher at Columbus School, passed away on April 8th, 2022. Dorothy Johnson, retired French and ESL teacher at New Rochelle High School, passed away on April 9th, 2022. Barbara Quigley, mother-in-law of Don Tardebrano, Secretary to the Assistant Superintendent of Business Administration. Mrs. Quigley passed away on April 14th, 2022. Sonia Braddock, retired reading teacher at Jefferson School, passed away on April 27th, 2022. Colleagues, can I get a motion and a second to adjourn this meeting?
So moved, Williams.
Second, Brooks.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No? Congratulations, Mr. Hildebrand.